As an avid comic reader, I was extremely excited to play a developer as Gyoshi's The Blind Prophet, a gritty point-and-click adventure that is heavily inspired by graphic novels and steeped in demonology. Judging by the support of its Kickstarter and several publishers including Plug-in Digital, Maple Whispering Limited, along with Ars Gyosha, I wasn't the only one intrigued by this devilishly dark presentation. You play as Bartholomeus, a 2,000-year-old warrior from heaven known as an apostle. You arrive in the small town of Rutbark, which has been infiltrated by several demons. Not long after your arrival, several possessions and mysterious deaths take place, leading you to investigate and hunt for various beasts seemingly at the root of it all. The gameplay is pretty typical for a point-and-click adventure. You are given 4 different options when interacting with people or things in your environment: observe, take, use, or discuss. These functions are pretty self-explanatory and for the most part work well. There were only a few instances when some of the interactions didn't feel like they lined up with the action I selected. Some items only give you certain options to interact with them if you do a couple other requirements first. It can be a little confusing if you think you already have an answer to a puzzle but can't use an item at that point, but this was rare and didn't really impede my gameplay much. To help you easily discern what you can interact with, you are given an ability called Stalker's Eye. This lets the player see items in the environment highlighted in red and really streamlines the exploration process. The in-game backstory for this ability is that apostles can detect demonic presence on objects, which is a delightful narrative to tie in actual gameplay. I can see where veteran point-and-click gamers may scoff at this feature, and some could perceive this as a handicap, but you are by no means required to use it. For newcomers or those more interested in the narrative, it's an excellent addition that allows more players to jump into the game without alienating hardcore or more casual gamers. The items you collect are simplified compared to some other point-and-click adventures. Mostly all of the things you acquire pertain only to areas you're in, and commonly you only hold about 3 items at a time. This means there isn't a ton of inventory you have to sort through to solve a puzzle. Also, once you solve a puzzle, you discard the unnecessary items, or commonly a mini cutscene takes place, letting you know you are on the right track. Along with these item-related puzzles, there are also scenario-specific puzzles like control panels, which bring you to a new display screen for you to attempt to solve. Some puzzles are time-sensitive and require you to figure out what to do before Bartholomeus dies. Luckily, respawn points are pretty generous in these cases, but it does create some subtle tension for the given scenario. Puzzles aren't as cryptic as some other point-and-click adventures, and for the most part make sense given this demon-infested world. There was never a "who would have thought of that" moment I came across, which I feel can be pretty rare in this genre. Because of the lack of cryptic puzzles, the game doesn't feel padded. That doesn't mean the puzzles are always simple, however. Many left me scratching my head for a bit, but almost all felt pretty satisfying to solve. Along with these puzzles are little mini-games, like a shooting range and an in-world arcade game you can play. While neither is super in-depth, both are placed at points in the game that help break up the usual gameplay and engage the player. Even with streamlined gameplay, I think the highest achievement of this game is the beautifully striking artwork. Every environment and character is created by the fantastic artist Baptiste Mini. The art style fits so well with the narrative, and perfectly encapsulates the interactive comic vibe. It made every character and environment interaction one I wanted to linger in. Along with this is a great soundtrack, which adds another level of tension to this unsettling world. Be warned though, this game's subject matter is not for everyone. There are a lot of disturbing themes and grim depictions that aren't for the faint of heart. That being said, the game never really felt exploitative. There is a clear narration here that simply has dark elements. Those interested in religious and demonic lore with a hint of Lovecraftian vibes will eat up this horror-soaked story. There are a few elements of humor sprinkled in here and there, but overall the story is fairly intense. To say much more about the narrative I think would be a disservice to both the developer and the gamers. This is one that's better experienced than explained, and one I thoroughly enjoyed. The only times it fell flat for me were some issues with the English translation. There are several grammatical and spelling errors. Along with that are some occasional awkward word choices and sentence structures that show up. It is easier to forgive a game that wasn't originally written in English, but sometimes those errors in translation can take you out of an otherwise pretty grippy narrative experience. Other times it did seem dialogue was missing entirely, but was so relatively infrequent that I almost forgot to mention them. Luckily, neither of these really hindered my gameplay much, and with a possible patch I imagine could be remedied relatively easily. The Blind Prophet is a gorgeously dark journey with a stunning aesthetic and captivating narrative that will stay with me for quite some time. The point-and-click elements paired with the game's dark tone immersed me for the entirety of this adventure. Any gamer looking for a morbidly afflicting experience will find it here. Noisy Pixel is giving The Blind Prophet an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to bring you news, reviews, previews, and more. Please subscribe to keep up with all our future content.